Hello and welcome to a lesson on the Pythagorean Theorem. Hopefully you remember this from middle school. We've also talked about it in Module 1, but we're going to use similar triangles to prove the Pythagorean Theorem today, and then we're going to apply the Pythagorean Theorem to solve some problems. So hopefully you remember Pythagorean Theorem works only in a right triangle. So let's take a look at some pictures. So we have Sarah, who is owning an online company that manufactures custom kites. Here is her kite. Why did the picture just change? Okay, so we have a kite. All right, hopefully you've flown a kite before. It's quite fun. All right, so she is going to build kites. Many of our customers don't know the correct name for the parts of a kite. How dare they? Sarah's creating a web page to educate them so she can communicate better with Sarah and her staff. Because so many kites include right triangles, the Pythagorean theorem is useful in analyzing the dimensions of a kite. All right. So the simplest kite is a diamond kite, as seen in my kite with me. When the sides of this type of kite meet, it's called a right angle. And we can use the Pythagorean theorem to find the spine. So this right here is called the spine. Okay? All right. Goodbye, kite. So which side of triangle XYZ is the hypotenuse? So let me color code that real quick. X, Y, and Z is going to be the right side of the triangle. So the hypotenuse, I'm going to abbreviate it HYP, is always opposite of the 90. And in that case, it's going to be our spine, which is XY. Okay? So the side opposite the 90 is going to be the hypotenuse. So that means the legs are the other sides, does not matter which. So that would be my 12-inch side, so ZX, and my other side, ZY. Okay? So my legs are in green, where they meet the 90-degree angle, and then the side opposite is the hypotenuse. Okay? So what is the length of the spine? Show your work. So let's read this math term over here. The Pythagorean theorem: in any right triangle, the square of the length of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the lengths of the legs. That is a fancy way of saying a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay? So where c is always the length of the hypotenuse. So let's write down the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, my A and my B, it doesn't matter. A could be 12, B could be 35, or you could reverse them. So the legs don't matter at all. So I'm going to say 12 squared plus 35 squared equals my C squared, because I'm still trying to find my hypotenuse, which is the spine. Now, I'm just going to type this in. So you would say 12 squared plus 35 squared. Okay? The squared button is located diagonal the 7 to get that exponent up there. But you get 1,369 equals c squared. Now I'm not done because c is not by itself. I have to get rid of this exponent of a 2. To do that, you're going to use this thing called a square root. Okay, a square root and a squared cancel each other out, very much like multiplication and division. So if you square root one side, you square root the other. The square and the squared completely go away, leaving you with just c, and then you would type in square root of 1,369. So here's my little calculator. So to get the square root button, it's in here in blue, so you have to hit the blue button first, and then the x squared button to get the square root to come up. And then you will type 1,369 in to get 37. So the length of the spine is 37 inches. Cool? So cool. So, the length of this spine is 37 inches. Okay? And that is how you use the Pythagorean theorem. Okay? It can only be used in right triangles, and it helps us find the lengths of the sides. Okay? All right. Let's look at a few more examples. Okie dokie. Number 2, a Pythagorean triple is a set of 3 non-zero whole numbers, so anything bigger than 1, that satisfy the Pythagorean theorem. Explain why the numbers 3, 4, and 6 do not perform a Pythagorean triple. So, to satisfy the Pythagorean theorem, that means a squared plus b squared should equal c squared. Okay? So, out of 3, 4, and 6, 6 has to be the c because it is the largest number, and the hypotenuse is always the largest number. So, let's see if it satisfies it by substituting it in. So, 3 squared plus 4 squared, I don't know, does it equal 6 squared? Okay? So to check that, you're going to type in the left side of your problem. So 3 squared plus 4 squared is 25. So does 25, does it equal 6 squared? 6 squared is 36. So those definitely are not equal. So I'm going to draw a diagonal line through that for the not equal symbol. So they're not equal. So that means it doesn't satisfy the Pythagorean theorem, so it is not a Pythagorean triple. Okay? So explain why. Because a squared plus my b squared doesn't equal my c squared. Okay? If it did equal and you got 25 equals 25, then it would work out. So fun fact, 3, 4, and 5 is an example of a Pythagorean triple because 5 squared is 25, and you would get 25 equals 25. So Pythagorean triple are just 3 numbers that always work out with the Pythagorean theorem, and there's lots of them. They're fun to memorize. So if you Google Pythagorean triple, you can learn them all, and it will help you save time in the future. All right, number 3. How high up a vertical wall will a 24-foot ladder reach if the foot of the ladder is placed 10 feet from the wall? Let's draw a picture. I'm going to assume this is a house. I'm going to draw a house. It's a terrible looking house. Good thing I'm a math teacher. Okay, let's put a roof on it. Color in the roof. All right, so I have a house, a wall. How far up a wall will a ladder reach? So notice you put ladders diagonally. So I'm going to draw a ladder. Hopefully you never have to clean gutters. It's not fun. And then we'll do some grass. We'll do some green grass. Drop some bushes in front of the house. Make it pretty. Okay. So I know my ladder is 24 feet long. 24 feet. Okay, so that's the hypotenuse. Because hopefully, when you build a house, it is going to stand straight up and down, which makes it a right angle. Okay? The foot of the ladder, foot meaning base, is 10 feet. So our keyword there is foot. So I know the bottom is 10 feet. Okay? Because that's how far it was placed from the wall. And I'm trying to figure out the vertical length, how high up. So I'm trying to figure out this value. Okay, so let me redraw that picture without any distracting information. So 24 is your hypotenuse, 10 is the bottom, and we're trying to find how high vertically. Okay, so I can use the Pythagorean theorem for this. I'm trying to find sides, and I have a 90-degree angle. So let's write down our Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, I always find my c first. It is always opposite of the 90. It's always also the biggest number, okay? So 24 is your C. Now your A and your B, it doesn't matter. We'll say X is my A and 10 is my B. You can flip-flop it, doesn't matter. So now I'm going to substitute in. So my A is X, so X squared, plus my B is 10, 10 squared, equals my C is 24, 24 squared. Okay, now I'm going to show you 2 ways you can solve this. I'm going to show you the longer way first, and then I'll show you a shortcut. Now we could figure out what 10 squared is. So 10 squared is 10 times 10. You type 10 squared in the calculator, you get 100. So I'm going to say this is x squared plus 100 equals, now I can figure out what 24 squared is by typing in 24 squared to get 576. Okay? Now, if this was a normal algebra problem without any exponents, I would have to get x by itself, which would mean doing the opposite of this, which is subtract 100. Hundreds will cancel, leaving you with x squared is 476. Now, the last step is to get the squared, rid of the squared, to get x by itself. So I'm going to square root both sides, leaving you with just an x, and then you would type in the square root 476, and you get a decimal. We're going to round to the nearest tenth, so the nearest one decimal, so 21.8 feet. Those are my units. Okay, so that's one way how to solve this problem. So I know that that ladder went up 21.8 units. Now, let's talk about why this answer makes sense. I know my hypotenuse always has to be the biggest number. Is 24 the biggest number out of them? Yes. Okay, so I would expect something less than 24 for your vertical height. Okay? All right, let me teach you a shortcut real quick. So I'm going to draw this little arrow to the side. Whoops. So let's say I had x squared plus 10 squared equals 24 squared. There's a faster way to do this problem than I showed you. Okay? Instead of figuring out what 10 squared is, you can go ahead and subtract it. So I can say, take away 10 squared, take away 10 squared, cancel. Okay? That'll bring down your x squared, and then you just type in this jazz into the calculator. Unfortunately, you cannot do 24 minus 10 to get 14 and then square it. That doesn't work. Okay? So let's do it together. Hello, calculator. So 24 squared, take away 10 squared, equals. I still get my same thing of 476, which is good. Okay? So that'll equal 476. Okay? So instead of simplifying my square roots, you can go ahead and subtract them. Okay? So then you would square root both sides. Now I'm going to teach you another shortcut in the calculator. So if you hit second x squared, okay, let's say I want to be lazy and I don't want to type in three numbers of a 4 and a 7 and a 6. If you look down here in the negative sign, you will see A and S, which means answer, in blue. So this is my answer that I want to copy and paste it. So I'm going to hit the blue button because it's in blue, and then the negative symbol. And then it will copy and paste it in there for you, and we will get the same answer that we got before. Okay? So, shortcuts. Okay? So subtract, type in the calculator. We know we're going to square root it, so second square root, and then second negative, we'll copy and paste your answer in there. So it's hitting 2 buttons instead of 3 numbers. Okay? Totally up to you. All right? But that is how you do the Pythagorean theorem, where you know the C value. It's a little bit more algebra, but it's not too bad. Okay? All right. One more and then I'm done. So we have Sarah again. One of her customers designed a rhombus-shaped kite, as shown below. The length of the spine, AC, is 28 inches. Okay, so this entire thing is 28 inches. Okay? Then it says the length of the spar, which is the left to right side from D to B, is 24 inches. Okay? And I am trying to find the length of AD. So I don't know what that is. Okay? So first off, notice that it's 4 right triangles. Okay? I'm only going to work in one of the triangles, so let's just work in this ADE triangle. Okay? Now, to find the length of AE, I know the whole thing is 28 units. Okay? So if I want to just find the top part, I'm going to half it. So 28 divided by 2 is 14. Okay? So that length is a 14. Now same thing, DB, the entire thing here was 24 inches, so I just want half of it. 24 divided by 2 is 12. Okay? So I'm going to redraw that so you can see it better. I'm trying to find the hypotenuse, and I know the vertical length is 14, and the horizontal length is 12. Okay? So I can do my Pythagorean theorem. I'm looking for sides. I have a 90-degree angle. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Your c is always across from the hypotenuse. So in this case, I'm looking for my c. Does not matter what you put for a and b for your legs. So I'm going to say 12 goes first, plus 14 squared, and then I'm looking for my c squared, which is my x squared. Okay? I'm going to type this all in the calculator. So 12 squared plus 14 squared. Okay? So that answer is 340 equals my x squared. To get x by itself, I'm going to square root both sides. So let's do my calculator shortcut. So square root button is second x squared. I want to copy and paste this answer in. So second negative. Now we'll get 18.4 because that 3 is not big enough to round it up. So 18.4, my units are in inches. I don't know why there are 2 decimals there. Okay, so that is the length of AD. Now, I'm not done. I did that part, but it wanted me to find the perimeter of the kite. Now, if you remember, perimeter is the entire outside added up together. So, if this is 18.4, then they are all the same. Okay? So you could add 18.4 up 4 times. I'm just going to do 18.4 times 4 because that will give me my answer of 73.6 inches. So that is the perimeter. Running out of room. Okay. So again, perimeter is the whole outside added up together. And so since it's a rhombus, all my sides are the same, kind of like a square. So I can add all of those up. Okay. All right. And that's the Pythagorean theorem. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, you're going to check your understanding. We're going to go ahead and round to the nearest tenth on this one. So that is 1 decimal place, for example, like 18.4. Okay? So go ahead and try the rest of them on your own. I think it's 5 through 8. Press pause, and then we'll go over the answers. That's me pressing pause for you, but my hair is blowing. Pause. Pause the video. All right, answers. A was 26.7 and B was 37.7. Okay, if you got that, go ahead and skip through the video to check your other answers. But I will talk about it. So across from the 90 is always your C. So that's why my 38 was on the right-hand side of your equation. My A was 27 because I didn't know my B. I subtracted 27 squared, square rooted it to get 26.7. Okay, if there is a 90-degree angle over here, there's also one over here. Opposite of the 90 is your C. So in this case, I was looking for my hypotenuse. This one is a little easier when you just add up your 2 legs, square them, and then square out your final answer. Okay, if you have any other questions, please let me know on that one. Number 6. One of the diagonals of a square rectangle measures 15. So I drew a rectangle, I drew the diagonal, it was 15. That is the hypotenuse. Okay? The width of the rectangle is 6, so the bottom was 6, and I am trying to figure out the perimeter. To figure out the perimeter, I already know 6 and 6 because it's a rectangle, but I'm going to need to find how tall this rectangle is or its length, okay? So you're going to do the Pythagorean theorem. I did it over here in green. So I'm looking for a leg, and I know a leg, so x squared plus 6 squared equals your hypotenuse squared. Subtract 6 squared and square root, so you get 13.74. So if you are trying to find the perimeter, you need to add up your outsides. So you have 2 13.74s, or 13.7s, and you have 2 6s to give you a total of about 39.48, or 39.4, 39.8, 39.5, anywhere in there, centimeters. Okay. Number 7. we also have a rectangle. So I drew a rectangle. Drawing a picture is going to help, I promise. I drew a rectangular rug. The width is 13 and the diagonal is 20, and I'm trying to find the area. So I need my length again, because I know area is length times width. So I have a right triangle, half of the rug. So I did my Pythagorean theorem of x squared plus 13 squared equals 20 squared. You end up getting that it's 15.2. And then so for the rectangle, it's the length times the width, which is the 15.2 times the 13 to get you somewhere about 197.6 feet squared. Okay? Area, your units are squared. And then last but not least, it wanted to know which of the following satisfied the Pythagorean triple. Okay? Now if you remember, Pythagorean triple is 3 numbers that satisfy it. So set it up like normal and see if your left side equals your right side. A, B, and C were all no's. And the last one, of course it was the last one after you did all the work, 9, 40, and 41, those will be the legs of a triangle that satisfy it. Okay? All right. Let me know if you have any questions on Pythagorean theorem. Otherwise, you can get started on your practice. Thanks for watching.